What a beautiful journey. We have been walking through the powerful journey on boundaries as the first emotional regulation. I like that topic because it shows a side of boundaries that we don't usually kind of talk about a lot, but is very, very powerful and very, very important in our lives. So let's just do a recap and go over what we've learned so far because this is our third video. And if you haven't seen video 1 and 2, this kind of catches you up. I still advise you to go back and look at video 1 and then look at video 2. We talked about the fact that not everyone belongs everywhere in your life. We looked at the 3 circles of relationships, starting with the innermost circle. And those are people who've earned the trust to be in your inner circle and to access the innermost vulnerability of your life. Of course, agreed upon. Of course, agreed upon. There's nothing worse than dumping on someone you imagine is a close friend who is in your inner circle, and in the meantime they are not in a position to hold that space for you, and then you feel bad that they didn't hold the space because you thought they were the closest of friends. Everything I am doing is meant to help you build your life and build your inner capacity to hold your own peace the right way. So the inner circle. Then we talked about the middle circle. These are your friends that you still value, but your vulnerability is not all the way in. You show them parts of your vulnerability that are safe within the realm of friendship, but you don't go all the way to overshare the deep-seated secrets that you're supposed to only share with people that are in that powerful, powerful, precious inner circle. I thank God for inner circle friends. I really thank God for inner circle mentors because they are the people who keep us sane. They are the reason we can wake up in the morning after having had a horrible day, after having experienced things that we think we can't handle. They really, really help co-regulate with us and help us, live a life that is much, much more whole. We really, really need to appreciate them. Then, of course, we talked about the outer circle, which is the wide, wide world with all the people that we meet on a daily basis that get to experience our light, but not the inner depth of who we really are. These both lessons were about wisdom and alignment, learning how to position people so your peace does not leak out. But today, we get to go a little deeper. We're going to be talking about something even more important and one of my special favorites for me, something that determines how you hold every one of those boundaries, and that is grace. 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 Grace is a powerful, powerful tool. So, what does grace really mean when we talk about boundaries? What does it mean when we talk about boundaries? Grace is one of the most misunderstood strengths when it comes to boundaries. People often think grace is softness or weakness, but that's not true at all. Grace is not passive. Grace is actually power under regulation. I love that description. It is power under regulation. Grace is the quiet confidence that allows you to say no, not this time, or that does not work for me right now, without hostility. See, you could say no, And you can say that does not work for me right now. And you could say it with hostility. But grace is what gives you that ability to say it without hostility. Put another way, I say it this way: grace is firmness with dignity. Without you dysregulating and spiraling into a 5-year-old. And I know what it feels like to be a woman over 60 and to spiral and get dysregulated and feel like I am 5 years old. And when I walk away, it's something beautiful to sit down with myself and have conversations with myself. But grace is that firmness with dignity. And grace is what gives you your boundaries longevity, because it lets them be real. Anyone can build a wall, but what it takes, awareness and healing to build boundaries with compassion. See, it takes grace. That's what it takes to really build boundaries with compassion. But let's talk about the reality, though. Because it's one thing to just come here and say, hey, listen, you got to do this with grace. But I'm realistic. And I want to meet you where you are without condemnation. I want to meet you where you are without judgment. And I want this space that I work in to have psychological safety. And be aware that you may not always have the ability, the capacity, and that's why capacity building is the biggest work that we do at entrustment leadership, because it's so necessary. It's needed for every area of our lives. So let's talk about the reality of what we actually experience, right? Many of us don't start with grace. When we first begin enforcing boundaries, we often do it with a lot of noise. Sometimes we are even angry, frustrated, and hurt. And sometimes we even say it loudly. And I've done that so many times. There's nothing to judge ourselves with, because I'm going to expound on it and show you what's actually happening. That's not because we are toxic or because we are disrespectful. It is because there is still trauma underneath. And most of the time, the wound is still open and gaping and hasn't healed yet. When you feel the need to yell, to prove, or to defend, that's a sign that something inside you is still unhealed. It means there is a wound there that still believes it needs to fight for safety. So bring awareness to it. Bring awareness to it. Every time I have had to assert my boundaries and I've had to be angry to do it, I immediately recognized the area of my life that still needs healing. You know how when something is not right in front of you, you can feel like you are all right and you are safe. And then when the person shows up, you totally lose it, trying to control, trying to put things in place. That is a clear indication you just found an area that needs healing. See, the nervous system always remembers what we forget. Our body keeps the score. When you are triggered, your brain's amygdala, the threat center of your brain, reacts as though you are in danger all over again. This is the reason why every time I feel unsafe with someone, I will put a boundary in place that asks all the people that care about me, that love me, not to bring that person around me until I have worked out my own healing. Because my nervous system cannot tell the difference between being threatened or traumatized when they traumatized me and them traumatizing me right now in this moment. To my nervous system, it feels as though I am in danger right now. Even if the situation is new, your body is relieving an old wound. See, wounds are layered. You had a wound that happened 10 years ago. It got repeated 9 years later. It got repeated at several different places. So sometimes what you're reacting to is not what's happening right now. It's a buried wound that has festered for years that you didn't even know was still there. The one where your no wasn't respected. Please hear me and hear me good, because relationships are very interesting. Sometimes people who lack trauma training and trauma understanding, they will force you to go back into a relationship with someone because it's okay with them, but it might not be okay with you. And when your no is not respected, that wound festers. It does not heal right away. Your voice was not heard. Your voice was suppressed. I wish I could talk to family members, because families, they're big on this. One family member experiences something that traumatizes the rest of the family, and that family member forgives, moves on, walks away, and then they just expect everybody in the family to just pick up with them and be where they are, without regard of the fact that they may be in a different place and they may need a little bit more time before they get exposed to this. And building relationships in family where we respect each other's boundary, it's such a big important thing, because giving me time to heal preserves my dignity and yours. It also preserves my trust and yours, but it also shows that you respect me. See, when your no was not respected, that's when this problem comes up. When your voice is not heard or your boundaries were ignored completely because the people around you didn't care. So when you finally speak up and it comes out loud or sharp or mercy, that's not failure. That's your unhealed parts crying out for safety. Show yourself grace. Don't walk in shame. Don't allow yourself to be dragged down into shame, because that's what happens. The person who violated your boundary, the person who did not hear your voice, the person who suppressed your voice, ignored your boundary, gets offended because they have moved on and they are okay, but you are not. There is no time stamp on healing. Healing will happen in its good time. That's why this is an important thing when it actually happens, because it makes you aware all over again that you have not healed in this area, because that's your trauma showing you where your next layer of healing really lives. So there are two realities to boundary reactions. The two sides of this reality are, the first one is when you need space, okay? You're not avoiding the people, you're protecting your healing. Because when you need space, you need to take the space. That's not avoiding, it is actually protecting. You can love someone deeply and still need a small distance between you and them to find regulation again. Space gives your nervous system time to remember your safety. The second is when you've been quiet, intentionally quiet, because you are choosing to deal with other things. Have you ever had traumatic events happen and they happen at the same time and they bombard you from different levels? In that moment, you choose to deal with one because you don't have the capacity to deal with all these things that are falling out at the same time. If you try to deal with everything at the same time, the likelihood is you would not be able to carry the weight and you would end up cracking. So, what happens is that our nervous system will ignore the other things and just focus on the most important things that you need to deal with right now. Maybe you are still processing, maybe you are not ready to address the issue, but then that person comes back into your space without permission, without apology, without sorting out what happened, and suddenly you are forced into a room where your soul is not ready for. In that moment, when the words finally come out, they come out with heat. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because the wound you avoided has been touched before it was ready to close. Just try it. Get a cut on your finger, get a cut on your hand, or get a cut on any other part of your body and poke a finger in it. You will go, ouch! It's involuntary. The reaction is simply a sign. I am not healed here yet. And here is where you know who loves you and who cares about you. Here is where you know who cherishes and wants to protect your safety. Are they going to continue to force themselves in your presence, or are they going to step back? Wisdom is stepping back to give you time to heal. So there are 3 steps to rebuild grace after a hard boundary moment. The first one is give yourself space without shame. Distance is not punishment, it is restoration. You can love people and still say, I need space to breathe. Space is where your nervous system finds footing again. Number 2, name what hurts and why. Ask yourself, what boundary was crossed and what did it awaken in me? Naming it gives you ownership. It stops the past from hijacking your present. Number 3, heal before you re-engage. You don't have to rush into conversations. You don't even have to rush complete forgiveness. You can pace yourself through forgiveness. For me, forgiveness comes easy. I forgive right away. I've grown and matured enough to know that forgiveness is for me, not the other person. I am not sure where your maturity level is. So I would suggest you go with your maturity level. Because again, you don't want to pretend you've forgiven when you haven't. So you don't have to rush forgiveness or conversation. When you have come down, when you've experienced the pause, the moment of separation, your body, your mind, and in your emotions, then and then only can you return. That's when you can speak the truth with clarity instead of defense. Anytime you're defending, anytime there's conflict, anytime you're pushing, anytime you're trying to control the narrative, it's a clear indication the breach has not yet been healed. So let's bring it back to leadership as I'm concluding this video today. In entrustment leadership, we say that grace is the mark of emotional mastery. It's the evidence that you have learned to regulate your power. Because remember, the dysregulation is not about the person. It's not even about the trigger. It is about the wound that hasn't yet been healed. It is about the trauma that has been suppressed. It is about the emotional capacity and labyrinth that has not yet been built. Because leadership isn't about control. Leadership is about coherence. It's about staying centered in purpose even when emotions rise. So true maturity and true regulation is emotions can rise right around me, but I don't have to rise with them. I can become the centering person that brings back regulation in the room. And that's true influence, and that's true impact. But it's a capacity that you grow and grow into. Because grace protects your dignity, not just your dignity, but other people's dignity. It teaches people that safety and accountability can coexist in the same conversation. Here is a powerful leadership insight. According to Harvard Business Review, leaders who handle conflict with composure and empathy are rated 37% higher in emotional intelligence and 29% more trusted by their teams. Grace then isn't just emotional maturity, it is leadership currency. This is a wisdom quote from me. When grace holds hands with truth, healing begins. As I close, here's a reflection for you. Something to think about as you go through the next few days. So, if you have ever reinforced a boundary with noise, please don't shame yourself. Pause and ask, what pain just surfaced? And what space do I need to heal it? Because grace always begins with honesty. I am not a proponent of shaming ourselves or putting ourselves down. I'm a proponent of awareness, being able to see ourselves in our true reflection with the areas of growth, the gaps of growth, and the areas where we have to start from ground zero to build our capacity. At the end of the day, capacity building is your maturity tool that will take your leadership to the highest level, your influence and impact to places of legacy. I hope this helps you to really begin to become more gracious to yourself first of all, and then to the areas where you notice the gaps that need to be filled, and then to the conversations as you begin to have those hard conversations on boundaries. I am looking forward to bringing this free, I think I decided to do 4. These 4 lessons, which I'll be concluding tomorrow, because I'm hoping that it begins a revolution of healing in your life. It begins a revolution of elevating your leadership. It begins a revolution of your awareness. But most importantly, that it brings accountability into your life and gives you back your agency so you can take back your sovereignty and begin to create boundaries. And maybe you can join us in the school community and learn how to create boundaries. What are boundaries? Which ones are non-negotiables for me? Which ones have I not been keeping? And which ones do I need right now to do what I need to do to finish and go forth and build my legacy? This has been Dr. Jennifer, and I am so grateful for this opportunity to share this wisdom with you.